All right, folks, for our assignment for how video games are impacting the world, I am asking you to create a mind map. Now, I have done this before, but I know that this is a concept that some of you struggle with. It's not always the easiest concept to understand, and I totally get that. So I want to explain to you again some of what my expectations are when it comes to those mind maps. First of all, the purpose of a mind map is to organize ideas. So mind maps are really just about showing us relationships between different items, between different ideas, because relationships are complex. So we can show subcategories. We can show links between ideas with color coding. We can show that things are opposite. We can show that one thing will lead to another thing, or that it must come before something else. So relationships between ideas can be really complicated. Mind maps are a way to show us some of those more sophisticated relationships. That is the purpose. That's what I want to see from you. So let's look at some examples. Examples are always helpful in trying to understand something. When we look here at this mind map, we're going to see some typical features. So first of all, there's almost always like a center section where it's our title or the concept that we're focusing in on. And then there are some bigger sections that come out of it with then subcategories. So we'll see some of those things attached here. Now this is obviously one that's a little bit more creative. Images can help us better understand relationships or ideas. Remember, we went over those doodle notes and it showed us how the left and the right side of our brain can link or connect ideas for us, and that helps us really solidify our understanding of a concept. So this is, I would say, an awesome mind map. I would love to see something like this from some of you guys. For those of you that are maybe much more logical minded, this is an example of a more typical mind map. It's very organized. It's very clear. We see the different levels. So this would be our overall concept. Then we see the levels. Some of them are larger. Some of them are smaller. That maybe denotes what's important versus what's not as important. And then we have our like smaller categories off of each of those what we would call like the subtitles. So all of that can communicate the same information, but perhaps a little bit neater, a little bit clearer for some of you that think in those ways. Over here we have one that kind of combines the two previous ones that we saw. So it's still very organized. This shows us some interesting things though that I want to point out. We still have our main topic, we still have our subcategories, but if you look at this one, we get to see a link between those different items. So this is starting to show us some more complex ways of thinking about the relationships between items. And then there's just a final example here for you that's less, using the circles or the bubbles, but still showing us those relationships. So this is a mind map about mind mapping, but we can still see what each of these sections is about before we get into subcategories. And this one even goes into subcategories and subcategories. So another great example to kind of look towards there. Now, for your assignment, what do you have to do? I'm asking you to think about video games and the world. I think we can all agree that a lot has changed in the world with the introduction of video games. I'm just asking you, how do video games impact the world? So somewhere in the center, you just have video games or video games impact. And then I want you to think about different categories. In what different ways do video games impact the world? I would come up with big categories first and then start getting into some of the sub details. Like maybe one of your categories could be education. And then you could break that down into logic and problem solving skills and literacy. And then from there, you can give us examples of what you mean. So you can take this in a whole bunch of different directions. I just really want to see you taking all of the information that we've learned in this week, all of the articles, all of the assignments, the infographic attached to this assignment, your own experiences, because those are very valuable when we talk about video games, because you're living them essentially. You are playing them, you are hearing about them. It is a particular cultural movement that you guys are a part of and witnessing and experiencing. So I want you to take all of that different information that you're receiving and show me that you can find relationships between ideas, that you can now step back and think about how are video games impacting the world, okay? Don't get too caught up in the details here. What I'm looking for is that deeper level of thinking. Are you able to see relationships, connections, and impacts here? That's what I'm looking for in the end, okay? Any questions at all, feel free to reach out and I will help you as best as I can. Have fun with this one, guys.